from somebody from the Coast Campus. Dr. John Saygin is a Senior Vice President for Research and Dean of Graduate College at University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. He's also a Professor of Manufacturing and Industrial Engineering at the College of Engineering and Computer Sciences. This session is similar to the last session, but we're going to treat it a little bit differently, more about how you leverage institutional support.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I regret that I had lunch and then came and then I saw the Texas-style lunch, which was good. Yeah, that's our regular. So if you're out of Texas, that's how we eat here. My name is John Saygin. I'm the Senior Vice President of Research and Dean of the Graduate College. I joined UTRGV about 2 years ago. This is my beginning of my third year. Let me start with a little bit about my background. So I was with UTSA, and Ram is here somewhere. Where is he? Where are you? Right there. I saw him and I said, have we recruited him? We should work on it. So I was with UTSA for 16 years. I started, of course, as a faculty member, and my background is in systems engineering, industrial engineering, so I see flow charts and arrows and things when I talk to people. So that's almost like a medical condition, but then it makes you feel like I need to improve things. And 10 plus years ago, back then, I went into the research office as assistant VP, then with some changes in the president's office, went into the provost office, did a little bit of graduate school, and then after all, it's really processes, broken processes, typically good people caught in bad processes in academia, and we really spend a lot of resources trying to get the right outcomes through bad processes without fixing the process first. So I've been very much process oriented. And when President Taylor Amy came in, I think, 2016, the goal was Carnegie R1. And I want to clarify, Carnegie R1 right now through ACE versus Carnegie R1 pre-ACE. ACE is the, I'll get the name here, the American Council on Education. They basically redefined how to get to R1 by reducing, lowering the standards a little bit. So the UTRGV R1 was principal component analysis, 3 variables, there's a certain zone, you have to strategize, do all that. Now it's much more simpler. 70 research doctoral degrees as a 3-year average and $50 million total research expenditures, and that's pretty much it. And so how to get institutional support in order to meet certain goals is really depends on communication and how you communicate with the leaders that are supposed to take the institution to the next level, but sometimes they don't have enough time to listen to you, but then most of the time you don't have the terminology to quickly get through what is important. So communication to me has always been key in order to get across the thoughts and the plans, the activities, the timelines that you have to basically make work. So we achieved R1 in January 22, and then I'm very project oriented, so we all got excited, and we had R1 t-shirts and coffee mugs and everything, and then suddenly I felt like, well, what do I do now? I mean, it's like, okay, we got there, so what, Then UTRGV opportunity came up. I came down for an interview, and I sat down next to Konstantin, and where is he right now? I don't know. Okay, he's right in the back. So 3 associate deans and me, 4 of us sitting somewhere on campus and eating lunch. And Konstantin started to offload all kinds of dirty laundry, HR, IT, facilities, but nonstop. And he turned his chair away from the table towards me, so I ended up doing the same thing. So he and I are having this tennis match, and the other two ADRs are just watching us. So at the end of it, I thought, wow, this is great. I mean, he's got all the energy. If I can channel that energy in the right direction, that's going to be great. Well, channeling the energy was still I'm working on, but it's great to work with Konstantin, with you. So to me, it's all about a situational awareness and creating a connected organization. So the mission, vision, core values, let me go back to this one. Okay. Mission, vision, and core values is your why, institutional why. So for UTRGV, and this is something I'm going to talk more on the dinner side, so you guys will get to listen to me twice today. It's a community-focused research university approach. So if you take UTRGV out of the region, then there's a big impact. If you look at some other institutions, you can copy-paste them in anywhere. The research they do is fine. But because they are somehow isolated from the community. We're not like that. So looking at this one, where you want to go and how you're going to measure, and then it has to be tied to timelines, initiatives, and faculty workload, and it's accountability. If the leadership is willing to do this, then you get to where you have to get to. In academia, we talk the talk, we don't walk the talk. So you've heard Dr. Spencer, I don't know, Thomas is here?
No, he has to go and put out some fires.
Really? I should have known about it? I don't know, we'll see. So Thomas is my associate VP, research operations, or the fire department. So with the tools that we've built, there is so much data, actionable information, that I will hold you accountable. No faculty member can come and say, oh, here's my expenditures and my publications. I know better than what they know about themselves, how they're doing. But then, on the other side, I have to support them with their mission. So if you can build this connected institution, then with all the accountability on the table, then you need to think about, so what are the priorities? Because you cannot achieve everything you want, at least not all at the same time. So he's got a lot of money. Right now, I'm going to come back at you now. With all the indirect cost revenue and everything, we are in need of literally building a new building and put test rigs for railway safety. I can't get the land purchase, the contractors and everything fast enough to support him. We're coming up with temporary solutions, removing walls and things in one of the, I guess they're going to visit tomorrow? So we're going to bring down the walls. That's a good political way to say it, right? So you need to be creative with those type of solutions to support the faculty. So 2019, I'm with UTSA, and we had some strategy, not very connected, not at the very granular level. Our Carnegie results were announced, and at the time, we had developed a replica of the same model, and we were looking at dashboards, and we ended up at the boundary of this zone. And if you're dark blue, you're R1. If you're orange, you're R2. We stayed at R2. That was terrible. Very uncomfortable meeting with the leadership. We said, well, where did we go wrong? What is that we couldn't execute? See, if you're not ready to have difficult conversations, you cannot become a prominent university with an impact, societal impact. You talk the talk, you do the things, and that's fine. But no, you have to say, you know what? We screwed up. So 3 different metrics, put in a different way. You really have to strategize. And in order to maximize that, you have to put your money in certain places. You have to execute. The expenditures, it's easy. If I need to get $1 million extra expenditures, we can say, Konstantin, you're $1 million on this equipment. Let's expedite the purchase order. Let's get it in during the fiscal year. That's fine. Research doctoral degrees, I can't do that. I can't go to 4 students and say, I'll pay you guys quickly go through the system. It doesn't work, right? So, but looking at the UTSA level strategies, we were way down here, and for each fiscal year, we said, you know what, we're going to do cluster hiring here. We're going to have AI here. We're going to do brain initiative here. We're going to do all of these things, and we allocated money and funds and everything to make it happen. The moment you do that, now you have to stand strong and say, when somebody comes, why don't we do this? Well, because we don't have the money to do it. You cannot make everybody happy. I think this thing is moving by itself. I don't know. UTRGV, our 3 goals: to become an emerging research university, become Carnegie R1, and then we have stretch goals to be at the same category in terms of the NSF higher education research and development rankings. We want to be at the 150, 155 level. We're at 193. So UTSA, UTEP, UT Arlington, UT Dallas are at the 150 level. So we have to get there. So being strategic, then you have to figure out what are the metrics. You can't just say, we're going to be R1, let's work. Do what? We have to coordinate, right? The metrics that you see, I need expenditures. Not only expenditures, I need research expenditures. So if you're writing a bunch of grants for scholarships and public service and instruction, that's not going to count for research expenditure. That's still good to have, but that's not going to count for research expenditures. In order to have expenditures, you need to get awards. In order to get awards, you need to write proposals. So you need to write a lot of proposals, but not a lot of proposals in the sense where it's just a quantity and no quality, and everything you read is, I regret to inform you. You know, we've received all those letters. It has to be successful. On the other side, research doctoral degrees. UTRGV has 10 research doctoral degrees. I don't call it PhDs because we have 2 EDD programs, and the EDDs count towards research doctoral. So with that 10, 4 of those have started just 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So it's like turning on the faucet and the hose is in your hand and you're waiting. I don't see students coming out of it. Yeah, well, the water is going to run through the whole faucet and the hose to get out, so you have to plan accordingly. But the data structure, the analytics that we have built over the last 2 years, I was able to calculate how many students we have, who the advisors are, what's their workload, how can we actually move it forward. Again, with data, you can make strong recommendations to leadership. So one of the things we did was we created pathways and operational pillars. You can't just say, let's get together and under certain themes, let's write proposals. Well, the more proposals you write, the more stress you're going to create on your pre-award, post-award grants accounting team. So we said, you know what, as we're doing this, I need to fix the pillars. If you don't have the pathways and pillars hinged properly, the whole thing is not going to stand on its feet. Then, this is how I think. This is my brain, unfortunately. This is, you don't need to read it. Well, most probably you can't read it. This is how to maximize research expenditures. I gave a webinar a few weeks ago somewhere, and I got comments on LinkedIn. They said, you gave the recipe to do it. I said, yeah, but it's obvious. I mean, in order to maximize, you have to pay attention to all of these 10 things out there. If you're not paying attention to it, total research expenditures include institutional money coded as research. I show up at FY23. I look at the whole UTRGV budget. There's $4 million put aside for graduate student support. I told the president, I bet this is not coded as research. He said, oh, well, let's see. I looked at it. No, it was academic support. According to PeopleSoft, that's a function 400. Research is 200. We looked at it. $3.8 million of it is actually going for GRA support. Nobody paid attention to it. $4 million right there, right? So many things. But anyway, so there's a recipe. And then graduate programs. It's not enough to go to the coordinating board to get the graduate programs and then your faculty. There are so many different bits and pieces to it. So by being structured, I was able to convince Dr. Bailey and all the other VPs to do certain things, to support certain things, because I was able to say, if you do this and map it over your data structure, then things will happen. But then, of course, you have to prove it. And my approach is pretty much this. I look at data, and you look at the past data, and, okay, Jesus is going to get my picture as I'm doing this. You got it? Okay, good. So, you'll see it on LinkedIn.
By the way, I allow this because he's paying for them, and they're helping me for free.
Yes.
So
Yes. There's publicity always good. So if you have data, institutional data, use it to your advantage. But it's a double-edged sword, because sometimes people look at Excel sheets and pivot tables and all that. They make up stories. They don't see the big picture. So you look at the past, descriptive, what happened. Well, you look at, if you can figure out why it happened, that's great, because you can stop it from happening at least. Then you go into the predictive one by saying, Dr. Bailey, looking at our banner data, we have these students and these faculty, and this is how fast they are moving. So I predict in 2025, 26, this is what's going to happen, right? But then the most important one is this one. If I tell Dr. Bailey, if you put $1 million towards the graduate student pipeline, if we support them, if we eliminate or reduce their GTA responsibility, where they focus on GRA and get through that shorter hose, then I can actually get UTRGV to Carnegie. He said, okay, sounds good, right? You have to use data. So what happened? I came in here, and now we finished last year at $87 million. So that's a $25 million difference. And I tell Dr. Bailey, please don't expect me to do this every year. You know, there's a initial inefficiency in the system that you can easily fix, quickly fix, but then it's more intrinsic growth. Same thing with research doctoral degrees. And for some reason, that's again 25. I don't know, that's like a magic number. So we went 43, 45. What happened at 68 degrees when we did that last year? We paid attention. Pretty much that's it. So think about students staying in your pipeline extra 2-3 years where they're paying tuition and fee and they're not able to get their degrees. That's not fair, right? Then you start paying attention, and the graduate student success, they get out of the system quicker while faculty members are paying attention. So by the end of this past fiscal year, we've become basically, we met the criteria to become an emerging research university. So the first one, I would say, that's a check. But look at the difference when you pay attention. Again, whatever your strategic goal is, the 23 column, number of proposals, 505. In 1 year, we went up by 100 extra proposals. Same pre-award folks. How did we do that? It's really a data-driven, a lean process, and a platform that actually facilitates this. And you look at all the numbers. I mean, this one is most scary. So this is COVID money. UTRGV was doing about 97, 98 total sponsor project awards. Last year, we hit 200. While everybody's happy, I don't want to sound negative, so I'm thinking we may not be capable to spend that money. So now I'm concerned about inability to spend the money. But we will spend the money. I mean, I know. So the emerging research, that's done. Based on the analysis we have in the Carnegie 2028 cycle, we're going to hit Carnegie. So this crowd is R1. UTRGV is R2. Constantine is R1. Well, some faculty members are too, that's okay, right? So it's not, you can't say, so we do R1 things, we do R1 stuff, just the rest of the campus needs to catch up. So, so with that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. I don't know how I did with the time. Good? Okay. And I'm going to say there's more to come during dinner. Thank you so much. Well, I'm just going to.
We are going to run this as kind of a panel thing, so if you have questions for Dr. Saygin, you will get a chance. Our next person who's going to come up is a slightly different, the other institutions are somewhat different from the one we've been hearing about a lot today. Pawan Tyagi is from the Center for Nanotechnology Research and Education at UDC, and you saw him earlier today. Is he around?
I think he's outside.
Yeah.
He's outside. He's looking to Thomas.
Well, we'll come back to him because we have a third panelist, Dr. Carrie Kouadio, sorry, from California, UC Merced, the Center for Cellular and Biomolecular Machines. Want to come up?
Yeah, maybe Constantine, if I could take that down and have my laptop. Do I need the mic?
Yes.
Hold the mic? I don't need to plug it, actually, so I'm just looking at it. Sure.
So we'll have the speakers just go, and then after that, you can ask any question to any of the three.
Yeah, that's how the panel is going to run.
Just for them to record.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everybody. So I come here from University of California, Merced. I've been there now for nearly 8 years. I serve as executive director for the center. We have a biophysics and bioengineering focus with biosciences. And our center organization is, I think, really unique. I've gone to, I think, every single CREST meeting since the very beginning when I started back in 2017. And I'm not sure any other center has an executive director role like ours. I was talking to a few folks about it earlier. It is really unique because one of the functions of it is that I do a lot of the stuff that the PIs end up doing because they don't have someone that they can give certain things over to. For example, collecting reporting, building tools to collect reporting, moving forward equipment orders, dealing with making sure everyone's paid, dealing with HR stuff, dealing with proposal, compilation of all kinds of documentation and checks and research development assistance. So I do a lot of these things. So I want to preface what I say with that. Our center is quite unusual among the centers. We find it to be a successful model and a good model. So we retained it for both phase 1 and for phase 2. Okay. And I'm just going to say a little bit because actually I was told not to say too much. And then I'll do a poster tomorrow. So I'll be talking about some of these things also in my poster. So our center is also really unusual because we have 10% of the faculty of UC Merced. There are 300 faculty at UC Merced and we have 30, right? And so this is really remarkable because we have this very strong presence on our campus. And we had a discussion this morning about, when you, like we have the funding level of $1 million a year over 5 years. And so how do you create a kind of centeredness when your budget is limited like that, right? But we found different strategies to do that, where we actually do fund grad students and undergrads. We train the grad students, undergrads. We have a postdoc who collaborates with different groups. We have a project scientist also who does, and there are many other things we do. We run workshops where we bring in external speakers and our own speakers, right? So we do all these activities that actually do create a centeredness, but it takes a lot of work. So it doesn't just happen. It takes really a lot of work and lots of strategic planning. So that's another unique feature of our center. Another thing I wanted to mention, I've been doing a lot of, two things I'm going to mention just quickly so it'll make sense. we're very much focused on the future. We're not really even living in 2024 right now. We're kind of in 2025, 26, 27. We're trying to get ready for those years. And so we're working on all kinds of planning, all sorts of activities to get ready for that when our funding ends in August 2026. So I've been doing lots of data analysis to try to make the case to the campus, why they should transition us into an organized research unit, which in the UC system sounds like a lot like the UT system, where it's a unit meant to foster interdisciplinary collaborations, to create an atmosphere to bring many different people together, to organize conferences, to organize proposal development, to create training opportunities for grad and undergrad students, which is what we do. It's funny, when we started to do the analysis of, okay, what does it mean to do the application, we found, we've actually been operating as an ORU since nearly the beginning. We just don't submit proposals through our unit, but we hope to if we are granted ORU status, and possibly we're hoping and begging for campus support towards some salary and benefit support for a few people in that regard. But with that kind of preparation for that, I've done a lot of analysis of things, and here are some really interesting things I discovered. I kind of intuitively, I was like, I kind of intuitively knew this, but then when the data, like you're saying, the data tells the real story, right? So we've had at least 180 peer-reviewed publications since 2016. And when we did this analysis, what was really interesting is we call it first sightings of collaborations, where you see like a new pairing of faculty who you've never seen, published together. It's rising over time, which is super interesting. Our journal impact factor over 10, we have 29 publications that are in high impact journals. We actually have 68% of active NIH awards going to people in our center, 68%, which is like astounding, right? We've got 80% of the 2024 new funding going to our CCBM faculty. And then generally 33% of NSF funding is going to our faculty. We've had 12 out of 30, no, sorry, give me a second. Yeah, I think it's 12 out of 40 of our NSF career awards have gone to our faculty. So you get the point. Our people in our center, kind of like you were saying, they're operating at R1 level. They're really they have a lot of, they're training PhD students, they're bringing in funding, they're really active in collaborations. So we're trying to keep it going. And we also discovered that our CREST Center awards were the second and third largest NSF awards for the 2016 to 24 period, right? And overall, out of 1,600 total awards for UC Merced, which started in 2005, these CREST awards are number 11 and number 12. So all of it's remarkable. So we're trying to make the case to our administration, and we've been having meetings, and every time we see them, we try to, kind of urge and give more evidence of doing good things and trying to move it forward. So that's one thing we're doing. And obviously we're training tons of students. We've funded 49 different grad students, and none of them for probably more than, they don't all get a full year, right? But they apply, they get funded. We've trained now 186 undergrads. We also applied for an NSF RU site. Last year we got that funded, so now we can actually grow the number of undergrads that we can train. Another thing we've been doing, which is really interesting, and we're so used to it that at one point I kind of forgot, this is actually remarkable. We as part of the phase 1 grant, we brought in a mass spectrometer, and that was very important for the kind of research that we do. And actually when our co-PI, or our PI, Victor, came from his previous institution, he recognized UC Merced needs this instrument, very much, right? So the CREST grant brought that in. Our project scientist has been managing and directing the use of it for many years, but essentially our center has been providing this service to our center faculty over many years. The campus has multiple core facilities, but not a mass spec core facility. So we're working right now on a proposal to bring in a number of mass specs under one umbrella along with other biomolecular instruments so that we, under our ORU, operate this core facility. That's another big project that we have. And so those are just, we're staying busy. We have our eyes, like I said, our eyes are on 25, 26, 27, and I can take any questions at the end. Thank you.
And for yet another contrast, Pawan from UDC. I introduced him a minute ago.
Put your arm there.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So my name is Pawan, and I'm from University of the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. So in line with the topic of this session, which is basically successful strategies for leveraging institutional support for enhancing effectiveness. So I'm just going to first go over a couple of the things which we have utilized during our phase 1 to impact our institution and institution mission also. So one of the first thing which I like to mention is, so UDC offer community college level to PhD level offerings. So recognizing that we offer this experimental approachability for community college students to learn about nanotechnology, and so they have programming like a quantum informatics. So they have very theoretical version, and we told at community college level you don't have, students are not ready to basically grasp that much mathematics, deep physics. So they need to learn by hands-on things. So we do quantum tunneling on those kind of experiments, so we can give that experiential learning. So we have started kind of connecting a CREST Center resources and our technical expertise to basically broaden and make our impact bigger, and also get some more support. But support is basically right now is kind of like advertisement. So now I think whole university knows what CREST Center is doing, because it's kind of go from the whole range. Second thing, so the UDC was basically 4-year undergraduate focused institution until 2018. We have ABET accredited programs, but we had also struggled with enrollment. So in order to enhance enrollment, actually we wanted to increase number of programs in that. So one program was the computer engineering. So we started computer engineering track in electrical engineering, but they again did not have much resources. So we have a small clean room and all the fabrication and device testing, etc. So we again connected our availability of these resources and expertise to this upcoming program, so that we kind of increase their effectiveness and also increase our impact. So that is again now that program, it started last year, and it attracted almost 100 applications. It might be a small number, but when it come to it was a new application in that particular track only, and it was more than the whole electrical engineering enrollment part. So that was basically kind of permeating into the impact there. Other thing was when I joined, I really had a kind of hall like this empty, and I basically purchased my first equipment from my own self money. I did not have support, so, and I struggled for next 2 years to really, but NSF gave me my, so in the first month of my joining Treno track, I submitted grant. After 3 months, I got my first research initiation award through this program, and after seeing that, actually UDC started putting this some facility for the clean room, and so that nucleated, and then it basically became CREST Center. Then we have a NASA MUREP grant, then we have Department of Energy. So that basically initial investment really now kind of launching in the multiple direction. So, but so we are trying to really looking at the traditional program growth using this cutting edge research which we are doing, and also so ABET programs are kind of really the seal for our student to send anywhere. Yeah, one improvement we were okay. So other thing was the PhD program. So when I started as a CREST program director in 2019, our PhD program also got started. There was some initial support. We had tuition coverage from institution, but they just make it a dead drop. And in 2022, they just really cut it out, and thus every student was out of tuition support. And then actually the CREST Center was the only place actually. So we supported all the PhD students in that for that duration. And then actually we let it go. Now the institution started giving some support back to the selective way. And now we have the new president, and we are very hopeful that actually there will be some major changes. But without CREST support, this new program would have died in the very early stage. So that was actually the major blessing which we kind of we are proud of. Like during the COVID-19, when actually things were very bad, actually this helped us keep going. Other part I just see as a so as I mentioned, it was a 4-year program. Nobody ever talked about patent innovation, but from 2019 to 2022, we made 5 inventions, and we applied for the patents. And right now, I think we have almost 8 patent applications. So within just 5-year period, and 70 plus publications, almost 30 are in progress right now. And our research excellency basically, so now I think we have some NSF CREST PRP supported postdoc. So that has been, so this CREST Center is basically a welcoming hub. So we have an APS supported fellowship postdoc. So they just look at our profile and they just wrote their own grant. They came to UDC. I met one of the candidates here in the last CREST PI meeting, and actually he is now Dr. Tamargo student. So he is with us. We welcome. So one of my PhD students now applying for that. So CREST Center has basically. So we are just trying to expand our research portfolio, moving this in the 5-year period from undergraduate teaching focus to really cutting edge research focused institution. So there is a lot to happen. So as we kept mentioning, there is a lot of administrative support need to happen, because things are happening at a much faster rate, and as a faculty, I'm doing my part, my faculty team are doing their part, but we are just trying to work out many more possibilities. So yeah, with that actually now we have started our intellectual property office. That's so yeah, so in like 3 year before they started, and I requested some support from NSF to kind of let me move some money for filing patents, because they did not have money. So we have patent worthy ideas, but how to file it? So then actually we transfer some of the money, and we started all the patents supported by the NSF CREST. So I think it has in the context of UDC, this center has really transformed undergraduate education. As I mentioned, like in the computer engineering track, their new tracks are coming. Community college level training. So they are starting quantum information informatics. This is the first AS degree course in US which is focusing on the quantum education, and they have the STEM pathway. So they come, almost 80 students from community college come every year to our center, where we do like several days of experiential learning for them. So these kind of things has happened, and we are just now looking for more efficient processes where actually I don't have to burn out in kind of really taking care of like procurement, HR, student payment. So my almost 30 to 40% time, or sometimes 50% time goes in that. So so I'm just trying to have my most of the energy going in excellency, in research, in student mentoring, and really uplifting what we are supposed to do. So probably I think these are the major highlights. Oh yeah, the last one, Museum of Nanotechnology and Quantum Experience. That is one of my dreams. I have been telling and so president is on board on that. So he told me this can be a great university level outreach to the community or anybody who want to. So Washington DC is a city of museum. You have like 45 museums. Now there need to be 46th or something. But yeah, that will be on the UDC campus, and that's really supposed to excite really the student who are not student, like even the people who did not start going to college, elementary school to PhD level, and everybody finds some intellectual excitement to start in that. So yeah, I think that's where I just want to conclude my part, and I'm open for any input, question, and yeah, thank you very much for listening.
So I had to take a screen of the newer institutions because all three of them have been expanding in their roles. So what I'd like is that the three people who spoke came back up here, and do we have a second microphone?
Should.
We'll three at some point. I don't know if this one is.
They're not reliable.
He's got the one thing.
They're not reliable. Can we get? They're not. They're just gonna keep cutting off.
Yeah, but I think
I would just stick with that one and share it.
You want to try it?
Yes.
So,
You can try
we've
it.
got all this wonderful wealth of experience at three different institutions. What kinds of questions? Anybody? We have some questions for you.
I can be loud enough.
I think you talked about R1, R2. Once you get to R1, how do you stay R1?
Yes, that's a good question. My being focused on metrics has basically created an impact on campus in terms of a little bit of a negative, that everybody is thinking expenditures and the degrees, and then I had to stop and start conversation with the faculty and the faculty senate and the deans to tell them that R1 is not like it's a spot. Oh, we're R1 now, so what happens, right? It's not like that. So I have a slide that talks about R1 culture. So basically, when you become R1, and if you're really an institution with societal impact, you stop talking about expenditures and doctoral degrees. You start talking about the impact you have out there in the street. You talk about health disparities. You talk about how you work with school districts. You talk about economic development and the workforce and everything. So if you think about UT Austin and University of Houston, they're at the billion level. If you ask any faculty member there, what's your expenditures? They're going to say, what expenditures? If you ask somebody on our campus who's close to me, they're going to know it's $87 million. Means nothing, technically. So R1 is really pushing for that research excellence, scholarly activities, from undergraduate to all levels of graduate, plus professional degrees, and having really an impact in the community that you're in. That's R1 to me. And how to sustain it, of course, you have to have more grant activity that brings indirect cost revenue, that you can repurpose those things. You're well known, your reputation, so you have hard time during admissions to say, these are all good students, we don't have the capacity, what do we do? As opposed to the other side of the coin, where we have all the faculty, we're not able to get enough students, how do we go recruit? The game just changes a little bit. So it's a never-ending journey, basically. And I know Merced is going to be becoming R1 because with President Nunez, right? Munoz. He was one of President Bailey's vice presidents back in the day. President Bailey knows all the presidents in the whole U.S. So we were on a group actually looking into strategies, and Merced was one of those. So, so you guys are getting there.
Yes.
I know your numbers, but I couldn't remember. But anyway.
So I have a question for Carrie. I actually do believe that having an executive director, non-faculty,
Pardon me?
non-faculty executive director, somebody who can help in, kind of herd the cats, right? Go after the faculty. Hey, we need the report. We need this. But somebody can also, help with the PowerPoints, and that is definitely. I mean, that's something that it's a dream, right? Two things. Do you think that CREST should, because in some grants it says that you need to have an executive and there is a budget for it, and that's something that helps with the success. However, saying it and doing it is two different things. Finding that person is usually not easy, right? Because we're talking about somebody who can understand research or without being a faculty, right? Be able to get this. And then salary expectations. So in those two, how would you look at it in terms of making it something that centers can actually accomplish that, right? How would you see that being put, let's say, if there was something in the CREST that says part of, the grant, you should have an executive director with these kind of expectations, right? Is that something that you would think would help?
Thank you for that question. I've given, did it go off? Yeah, it went out, okay. So I've given a lot of thought to this over the years because I always have interesting conversations with folks at these meetings, and when I learn what everyone's doing, it's really interesting to me because it's really different than our model. So I think I actually like the CREST model of let everybody decide what they think is best for them. For us, from the beginning, our, Victor Munoz, our PI, and Ajay Gopinathan, the co-PI, who the two of them are co-directors, they determined from the very beginning, from 2015, that we need administrative roles to move things forward. We actually used to have executive director combined with someone in a coordination role. With the budget, being flat, we actually had to cut that role for phase 2. So that's created its own challenges. But I like the CREST model of leaving it free. For some people who think that they need it and it would be valuable to them, then they do it. For others, if they think, no, we don't want that, we don't need that, we don't want to put the money of the budget that way, which I could understand, right, because it's significant. I think in our case, we think, what I see in practice is that, and my philosophy is, I do every last thing I can do so they don't have to do stuff that that's not towards the scientific vision, the strategic vision, the education vision, the overall service mission of the university. So anything that's not in that role that obviously warrants and needs their input and their oversight. Any of those things I can do to take them off their plate, I try to do that. I see it as, I take these things, and it's very much like that typical, we use that model that the STCs use, where they have a managing director and the different types of centers like that. I think it's useful because then they can focus on the science, right? I mean, that's what they love. They love to do research, they love to teach, right? That's what they can really give energy. Now, obviously, they spend tons of time on the CREST grant, but it's energy that we think is spent in the best way. We also think that the energy then that goes with my efforts, it can be put towards things like, we brought in a HBCU-RISE training grant, right? Our team did. And essentially then I can work a ton on the proposal, which is super synergistic with our CREST grant, right? But the efforts that I spend can then bring in more money, like the REU and the supplements and all these different types of things. And then we're working on others right now. So, and then your second question is, it had to do with like the kind of the amount of money and the difficulty of bringing someone. I do think it's worth considering. Is it worth it or is it not? I think it is not easy to find someone who is well suited for that role or who wants to do it. But I think there are people out there, there are people out there, and I've met tons of them over the years. I've been doing this kind of work for many years, so there are a lot of them.
But I don't want to put you on the spot, but a lot of these positions, because I'm familiar, the UTCs, the University Transportation Centers, have those positions. And to get the person that you're talking about that can do the writing and can take off all of that, we're talking about anywhere between 85 to 100,000.
Or more.
Or more. Yes, I know. I don't want to scare people. So that my point is, that's the thing. How do you go about, because it does take off like a lot of things from the faculty, but of course, to find somebody, you need to pay them, the money that they're worth. And is that something, if it is going to come out of the CREST, and take away from research and PhDs and whatever, how can you justify it in the grant? That's the kind of thing, unless it's additional, right? And say like, hey, the CREST is going to fund this, plus an executive director that can help with that, and that's something that you have it different than the budget. So it doesn't really take away from your budget, but now you have access to that administrative support that can take off some of this load.
Yeah, I think I'm a full supporter of increased funding for CREST. I'm a big supporter of that. I don't know. I think personally, my sense is that in our case, that general administrative oversight and contribution and additional work and getting additional proposals submitted and just all the additional stuff that can happen from having an extra person or just me giving full time to CREST. I think it, in the end, actually elevates what we're trying to do. Nothing's taken away, and it's not that we're still serving tons of students, and we're still, really doing impactful work. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I have an observation and then a maybe naive question coming from a junior faculty member. So what I've noticed is that there's a lot of emphasis in trying to get to R1 status now throughout today's discussion. And I guess I'm wondering why, but also that I specifically wanted to go into more of an R2 or a PUI institution when I was searching for a position because I like the emphasis on teaching. And I can appreciate doing research for research's sake, but I really appreciate research for the sake of giving the students an opportunity to learn what research is. So the focus is not necessarily on the status, but more on how do we train our students to think like a researcher and not really necessarily just about the papers. I think someone emphasized that, or the status of the school. So why is there such a large emphasis on getting to R1? I know it sounds naive, but I really like an explanation.
That's a very, let's see, I don't know if this works.
I think I tapped the wrong one. Oh, maybe.
I don't know. Okay, so let me try with the microphone.
The preference, if you hit that, sometimes if you hit the other channel, it just changes. There
See, we're talking about all the technology, we can't even fix too much.
I think this one is fine.
all the physical, cyber, everything, and then the microphone doesn't work. This kind of, so the biggest misunderstanding about R1 is that people think it's all about research. Forget about undergraduate education, go to your lab and do your research. So when I was with UTSA, I used to give that example. So there's a great research institute in San Antonio, Southwest Research Institute. All they do is research. So you have to think about a teaching platform, say take Alamo colleges, and then take Southwest Research. They serve different purposes. When you put UTSA in the middle, similarly UTRGV or anywhere, you have to bring the right blend of teaching research service. And you have to teach such that you're not picking up a book off the shelf, which I'm kind of old school with the books. When I stopped teaching, it was still books. Now I know there are a lot of other things out there. And it's almost like students may not need professors. They watch YouTube and TikTok and they learn everything in 15 seconds, right? That's the new teaching. So you have to teach something, you have to bring something to the class that doesn't even exist out there yet. That's the beauty of teaching in an R1 institution. My daughter graduated from UT Austin, and in biology and some science classes she was taking, she was giving examples and saying that, oh yeah, that professor has an NIH grant and they're looking into this. If you can catch that excitement, doesn't matter if you're with R2s or anything, but the idea is the teaching role is, to me, is different. It's a discovery, it's a different mindset. If you can make your undergrad students ask why, and constantly, but why, right? Then you're getting to the root cause of certain things and why things are happening. It doesn't have to be engineering science. It could be political and social sciences, anything. So when you can bring their intellectual thinking to that level, then it doesn't matter R1, R2. I mean, you can be in an R2 institution and a terrible teacher. You can be in an R1 institution. There are more terrible teachers in R1 too, because they're good with research, they just don't know how to teach or communicate with students. It happens, right? So we shouldn't really think about it as R1, R2. I think there's so much emphasis on the label. It's really what you do in your specific discipline and how do you bring the students with you up to that level. And the students actually choose to stay with you at that level because you create that intellectual curiosity. If you can do it, call it whatever you want, but that's the perfect, that you're going to be the perfect teacher. So that's my approach.
Yeah, so again, I'm not, so we are in the quest of R2, and again, probably I think this might be, so what I heard from my president, he was interested in having R2 as a kind of like somebody, like the whole institution start thinking about setting a goal. Mm-hmm. Like there is a goal for the institution, and in order to pursue that, actually everybody strive to do their role. So that is actually kind of like a motivational thing for everybody like who are involved in that. But again, I think I 100% agree with my colleague who just mentioned. So it's again having this curiosity burning in the backside due to any way you want to do, whether it's kind of really having this excitement due to the availability of the new research project which can excite them, or it is some kind of like a peer who is working in the kind of research training, or undergraduate researcher who are working in some lab who are hearing about this. So again, it's no longer like lecture-based teaching. Again, everybody kind of, I don't have to, it's look like a very old way of telling, but this is as long as we can excite it through a discovery process, I think that's what it means. Yeah.
Can I make a quick comment? So I really enjoyed the definition that you gave of R1 institutions. This is not a Carnegie definition.
No.
It's much better. It's much better. Measure it by impact. I really enjoy that, and I think it's a correct approach. I have a question. When we compare some institutions with some other institutions, we often think at NSF about capacity building and critical mass.
Yeah.
And we see that in those institutions that do not yet have critical mass or sufficient capacity, the PI change and PI transfer requests are sometimes an order of magnitude more of them than in those institutions that are well established in terms of capacity and critical mass. So it's like another way of approaching this question is to say that there is a set or a group of institutions which are the end point in career, where you want to go and stay, and there is a group of institutions where PIs come through a step in the career, not where you want to stay. That has, I think, to do, if I'm on the right track, if I'm not, correct me, but I think that has to do with this ability to have critical mass and capacity that attracts talent, both on faculty and student side.
So the building capacity, but I look at it as capacity and capability, right? So you can have capability. I'm going to give some railway safety capacity example. We have capability to do so many things under the railway safety. We don't have enough capacity to do it. So when you look at the capability capacity matrix, again, engineer talking, you have to build more than one person. You have to build a portfolio of resources. And at UTRGV right now, we have several success stories. We got our first RCMI, Research Center for Minority Institutions, grant, which is $28-some million. We're getting a lot of Department of Transportation grants. We have all that. And when you look at those groups, we haven't built enough strong clusters, pillars, that if the institution shakes a little bit, something's going to crack at this point. Because it's really, Konstantin is doing what he's doing. We have several individual names who are doing. So my role as VPR is really to think about capacity, capability, domain, and say, well, for instance, I got a Department of Education Research Infrastructure grant last year, $5 million, started this year. All I have in it is postdocs, graduate students, and travel to Washington, D.C. to meet with NSF. It's all building capability capacity. So I give postdocs and grad students to those pillars to make them stronger. Because if you don't build your triangle, you have the faculty, you have your postdocs, doctoral students, master students, new assistant tenure track folks coming under their theme, then it's a strong pillar. We're not there yet. Now, some institutions have developed and come to a point where the institution is so strong, it's almost like they can't even change. So you lose your agility a little bit. Right now, we are so agile in one way, it's a little bit too scary. I mean, we can go in any direction, I can pull a group, but the capacity, that's scary. So that communication, strategic communication with the campus is a difficult one to have because they come up with ideas and I have to say, Dr. So-and-so, it's not a good time to go after it. Technically, we can, but we shouldn't because I don't have the resources to do it. So it's a journey.
And just to add to that, Thomas, the thing is you don't want an institution to depend on 3, 4, 5 faculty, right, on your research agenda. I mean, like for me, it's like, God forbid, let's say something happens to me, right? What happens to all of these centers? Who do we have? The training, right? Because like you need to have more people that come in to keep that. So you don't need one person in one area. No, you need a couple of people so that if something happens, because we do have some faculty might leave. If you leave, does that mean that area is dead, right? And what do you do with that? So I think the difficult part is right now is we still haven't built that capacity where we have redundancy in the system so that we have, for example, a couple of people or 3 or 4 people in transportation, 3 or 4 people in AI, 3 or 4 people in different areas. So if somebody leaves, somebody will take that place and fill the gap right, until we get more help.
Right, that also boils into the critical mass.
Yes.
Whether you
Yes.
have to know. But I was kind of hoping you'll tell me I'm wrong, and you didn't.
No, you're not.
Which means there may be a lesson to funding agencies there. Instead of having our old model, a very, very familiar model of funding centers through R1 institutions, where R1 is the lead, non-R1 is hooked up to it,
Yes.
we should actually allow non-R1s to be
Yes.
the leads.
So-
Build capacity, build critical mass
Yes.
where it's needed. Not make it a one-way street, but a two-way street. Increase the retention of staff and faculty, make students want to go there.
Yes. I think those infrastructure building grants are going to be very helpful to universities with potential like us. And I know you guys already said, like, to become an R2, there are certain strategic things that you can do. University of Merced, I work with your VPR and your president, so I know. But then the problem for the granting agency will be, how do you measure success? The problem is, when you're building foundation, you can look at the land and say, no work has been done there. Well, actually, we had to dig 6 feet under and put a foundation there, but it doesn't show, right? So that's difficult. That's the problem from my perspective. If I were to put myself in your shoes, I would say, well, how do I measure their
How
success?
to measure impact.
Yes, yes, but to measure impact takes time. So if I get an award for a 3-year, 4-year award, I can't say, oh, I changed the Rio Grande Valley like this, because it takes a decade to change it. So how do we measure it? That's the problem.
No government has a patience like that.
Yes.
And you know, that actually leads to the question you just asked, right? Because again, nobody says that your institution must go R1, right? But you need to have a set of metrics that tell you what's your impact. So if you're R2 and you stay R2 and you don't want to be R1, that's fine, but then find what is your metric. What are you impacting? Are you getting more students involved in that area? Are you getting more faculty trained in that area? Are you doing, like, what is your impact? Because it's different, right? Like, for example, if you are R2 and you become R1 because you get a CREST, it's easy to measure impact. Look, this has helped us do this. It has helped us get a doctoral program. Those are very clear impacts. In your case, you need to say, like, let's say our institution, we're happy being R2. That's what we want, that's what we enjoy, but then how do you measure your impact? And so finding those metrics that you can go to NSF and say, well, this is how we measure our impact, right? And getting those metrics, and by the way, everybody asks for those. USDOT always has metrics. It says, what's your metrics for success? And they tell you, you tell us what's your metric for success. We're not telling you it's publications. We're not telling you it's, no, you tell us what you think is your metrics of success, right? And you define them, and then they basically keep track.
You kind of answered my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So I have two questions. One is, how do you measure the quality in your outcomes? For example, when you gave two numbers, the first one, even though you say 189 publications, I was not impressed. But when you say 12 NSF Career Award faculty, I was very impressed. So in your outcomes, you have certain, how do you measure the quality of your outcomes? And also for CREST Center specific, what are they, basically? My second question is maybe more for Dr. Sever. So how do you convey that quality in the state level to get state level support as well to become R1 or financial support?
Yeah, I think state level is a difficult one, and I don't want to get into political side of the state level, but really, if we think about people want to have a healthy life, they want to have a quality life, they want to put food on the table. So how do we make it happen? So let's work backwards, right? So employment opportunities, economic development, workforce training, and if you can do those things in a technology-driven way, then you have a way to communicate with the state representatives what matters to them. I can't go tell them $87 million total research expenditures. They're not going to really. And then if I say, well, we got 68 doctoral degrees, because technically, if you think about it, what did we do with that $87 million is more important than $87 million. And 68 doctoral degrees, if they're still looking for a job after several years, the degrees, I didn't do anything, right? But unfortunately, the rankings, and all the rankings, US News and Washington Monthly, and look at all of those, they have to use some metrics to create some popularity contest so that we go after that. But if you do it for the right reason, I think that's where the impact comes across. So we have 50 miles up on 281, there's a checkpoint. So if you're in this region, and if you don't have your certain papers and things, you can go across that 50 mile. And if you have cancer, diabetes, good luck. Next summer, UTRGV is opening its Cancer Research Center. We just got $30 million from Val Baptist Legacy Foundation to start a diabetes center of excellence. What it will do is there's 2 amputations per day because of diabetes in Rio Grande Valley. Now, when I start talking about these, that's the real thing, right? UTRGV has collegiate high schools where we have a dual degree. First 2 years, the next 2 years in high school, taught by UTRGV faculty, then those students go to college. We have 75% of our students are first gen. They don't know how to study, they've never seen a college. So If you start making impact in that area, then that's where you can talk to state representatives. I have some statistics, 2024 statistics for my dinner talk. Shows all 4 counties we have, they are underserved, health disparities. I mean, you have all the reasons to start working on those. And if you do, you're gonna make an impact. Why? Because it's so bad, anything you do will have an impact. So I think those are the areas where we can basically focus on. And it doesn't matter really, R1, R2, or California, or wherever. It's really the community that we're in. When everybody talks about the public purpose of higher education, we have to speak with the right metrics to the right audience so that they understand. Just saying, oh, higher education is important, you know, advocating higher education without the right language, terminology is completely wrong. And it's going to basically turn people off. So that's my.
Yeah, I would add in the context. So I was leading this Department of Energy consortium, which had basically 4 HBCUs and 3 industries, like KC, NSC, Y12, Oak Ridge National Lab. So when we write our quarterly report to that, quarterly report is too much work, but I think we were required to do that. So we were always continuously thinking about 2 audiences. One, our program manager, who was always looking for how many of the students who are serving are going in those DOE industries. He was continuously there looking for that. But when the yearly report goes to Albuquerque in DOE headquarters there, they were looking for the publications. So one is heavily focused on the workforce aspect of the grant. Other one is focused on the intellectual aspect of the grant. So it was so you have to be just mindful about you have how many audience you are to, who are the stakeholders in that. You cannot satisfy everybody, but at least this matrix should be good enough, which basically kind of at least the critical people, and actually it should satisfy you and, because you sign up for it. So.
Yeah, I wanted to get to your question. And I agree with you. Someone, you could say this statistic to this person and they say, oh, that's amazing. And the other one's like, I don't care about that. So one way that we determine it is we have a diverse core group of leaders. I mentioned our co-directors, but there are the thrust leads, there's the graduate education lead, the undergrad lead. I oversee our broader impacts for K-12 and community, and we have a rotating, we grow in new people over time. And it's about half women, this group of about 12 people, and then some are more junior, some are very senior, right? And so amongst us, we come to a consensus on what is important and what is valuable and what is meaningful. And there are things I didn't mention earlier that I could talk to you about tomorrow at the poster session, but we had actually 70 of our people contribute to our outreach programming in 23-24. That is, I think that's really remarkable, right? So we have all these people leading and contributing. We're leading outreach with the community, which is probably not so, different from your community here. It's our student population is very strongly first gen, very high percentage of low-income students, but part of what we're doing through the center is doing, I don't want to say it's tons of outreach. It's not like it takes so much of our time, but it's very significant, and it's reaching people in important ways, and we think that piece of it is really critical as well. And then some of these proposals we're working on to bring in other projects are towards very clear societal impacts regarding things that impact the quality of life and human health and those things. So I guess this kind of consensus building is important to determine, okay, is that thing that we think is significant, is it, or is it not so much? And that's how we kind of figure everything out.
Yeah, quick question. You're all talking about essentially growth mindset and shifts. So for somebody like me, who I'm a postdoc, and looking within the next 2 years to become faculty and getting into this, say this growth mindset, what are you specifically looking for from the new faculty or people that are moving in, or how we can position ourselves so that we integrate in your future goals.
Nice. So you're a postdoc, and which institution you're with?
Florida International University.
Okay, nice.
The CREST PRP.
And what's your background?
Biology, so working on marine biology and seaweeds.
Okay. We have a Marine Ecosystems Institute. I don't know, well, I'm trying to recruit him.
He's building capacity.
It's building capacity right there, right there. So I think institutional match in terms of fit is important. I started off as a postdoc as well, and it was, you were expected back then, this is 27, 30 years ago, you need to have certain journal publications, you need to have some laboratory experience, so my area was manufacturing systems, automation control stuff. And then they would even ask, well, do you have any teaching experience? It's almost like, well, you're killing me. I'm just a postdoc with all these, right? Have you been involved in any, proposal writing? So I think the level of it is still there, maybe even higher, but really having a diverse portfolio is really important. But I think it depends on where you want to go. There's a nice picture I use in most of my presentations, the Alice in Wonderland, and she's lost, and the cat is sitting up on the tree and tells the cat that I'm lost, and the cat says, where do you want to go? And Alice says, well, I don't know. Then he says, well, it doesn't matter then, right? You have to know where you want to go. You want to go to a institution where there is very minimum teaching load, there is high research expectations, or it's more balanced, or you're more outreach type of person that can work with economic development corporations and researchers. So you have to figure out which would be a good fit for you so that you can prepare yourself accordingly. Nowadays, it's hard to be a kind of a Swiss Army knife, one size fits all, because if you're one size fits all, that means you're not good enough in any area, right? People are almost taking it to that level. So it really starts with you, I think. But you have my email address, so just send me an email.
Yeah, so I'll just add to that. So I think, as you might have seen, Constantine mentioned in the beginning, every student want to make a kind of like critical mass of expert faculty. So it might be a good idea to kind of look at those institutions where expertise, which is kind of related to your expertise, are in the need area, or there is a kind of like a scope. So if you just kind of start looking for those institutions, and I think again you have to start from your kind of answering that question, what you really want to do, and then just look for the institutions where actually you have the prospect of growing or leading. But again, I just would not recommend, I think, again, depending upon your interest, joining like a huge place where actually you might be just kind of looking for your entity in the research and kind of just questioning how much impact you are making in there, or how much growth chances you have. So some of those questions I think you have to think about before.
Yeah, actually, I'm not a faculty member and I never have been, but I'm talking from a very external perspective of, so, say UC Merced, which only started 19 years ago, right? So those who came early on, and even those who are coming, are helping to build the campus and literally building it, right? They're building graduate programs, new degrees. There are 2 new degrees coming up next year, right, in engineering. They're literally writing grants to bring in instruments that are critical for their research, right? It's not there. So it's a very different, and I came from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, which is very different, right? So it's been a good experience for me to actually see, I have worked with those who are faculty at UIUC, which has been there since 1867, and then coming to where I am now, so different. But there's enormous capacity to do good work at both, right? And then there's all kinds of other options. So that's all I can say about it, but I wish you all the best.
just wanted to add something, just so that when I give people advice, right? Students usually ask me, why did you pick UTPA back then, right? So when I finished my doctoral, okay, I had 3 offers. One is University of California, Riverside, believe it or not, my colleague here, okay. One was Arkansas State, and both of them were tenure track, and then UTPA was a 1-year lecturer, right? And I came here, and so my students say like, why would you do that? You 2 tenure track position and you came to a lecturer. When I came and visited the campus, I saw that I could have more impact. So it was back then it was 309 students, it was 7 faculty, and I felt that me being part of the smaller team, I think I can contribute and have impact, right? Measurable impact at this institution, way more than if I went to the other 2 institutions, at least, because they were more established at that point. And so I took a chance, right? And of course, like I was a lecturer, and then I worked hard, they got me tenure track, and fast forward now, like 21 years after I came to UTPA in 2003, the impact I've had at the institution, right, is visible. Now, I always tell people, if I had gone to, let's say, a bigger university, Ohio State or a Michigan, would I have been able to make the same impact? No. No. Okay? And so I always tell, do you want to be a big fish in a small pond, or do you want to be a small fish in a huge pond? And so that's kind of like what, it has to be you, right? You want to go into a well-oiled machine and plug and play, or do you want to go to an institution where you can help build the infrastructure, be one of those cluster hires that can help us grow in that area? And so those are the kind of things you have to think, and the only one who can answer that is really you, right? Like, what is it? What do I see myself in 5 years? And what can I do? And so that's kind of like one of the things and again, fast forward, 309 students in mechanical, now we have 1,200. So you can measure the impact when you do it that way.
This is for Dr. Saygin. You guys, and actually I heard it from others too, but you mentioned a switch, right, in administration. My question is, how long ago did that happen, and how were you prepared, for what you presented to us? What brought about your, your strategy?
So when you said switch,
you basically switched from your position being under the provost to being,
Oh,
next to the president. Yeah.
So when I interviewed June 22, applied in May 22, UTRGV had been through different structures of executive vice president, senior vice president, let's move research here and there. And at the time, I asked the interview committee and the chairs, I said, well, I couldn't find an org chart, tried to position myself. I'm very structured in my thinking. I want to see it, I want to attack the problem, but there was nothing. There were multiple org charts, and everybody answered very lightly. They were like, yeah, we had that and we changed and everything. So I said, okay, I'm going into this, but I don't know the structure. Then I was able to talk with Dr. Bailey. Dr. Bailey basically said, when first semester 2015 started, 2 years before that, you have 2 legacy institutions, and the coordinating board basically says, you're going to take UT Brownsville, you're going to transfer all the students into UTPA, and you're going to call it UTRGV. And you can think about the workload of the president, and primary focus was student success. So the institution went for student success for about 7-8 years. And towards the end of that, they started thinking, well, we need to bring research to this. How do we do that? So they combined grad college research together. They put vice provost research under the provost office and all that. When I came, I interviewed for the vice president research position, and I told Dr. Bailey, I'm reporting directly to you, right? He said yes. And then I talked with the faculty, everything. I went home, And one weekend he called me and he said, we'd like you to join UTRGV. I said, I'm happy, great, we're about to hang up. And then he says, John, would you mind if you take care of grad college as well? And we kind of hang up the phone. I'm like, what just happened now? And so being prepared for a dynamic environment, you really need to have some self-confidence. Having done similar things at UTSA, be through different provosts and presidents, at the end of the day, if you have certain skills that you can apply independent of the domain that you're going in with your leadership role, and if the goal is really help the students, help the faculty, clarify the institutional mission, and just march towards the mission, you can do it anywhere. You may be unhappy doing it. I've had those moments where I said, prior to UTRGV, why am I doing this? And my wife would be like, why are you doing this? You have those questions. But it's almost like anything that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So coming to UTRGV, my problem was every day is a deja vu. I'm like, I've seen this, the same faculty senate, the same HR folks, the same IT. It's amazing. I mean, now Ram is going to go back to UTSA. Same mindset. So if you have the patience to approach problems in a structured way and figure out the inefficiencies and take care of the people side very patiently, it really works. In academia, I haven't worked in industry. I work with industrial companies as part of my projects and some of the consulting I did. But in academia, what I see is really good people stuck in bad processes, and it's lack of communication. Everybody has a perception, so that's why I always attack the issues with the value stream mapping, process mapping. Come explain it to me, granular. Let's put data to it. So once you take a picture, now you step back and you deal with the emotional stuff. I've figured it out in my past 10 plus years, and I feel confident with it. UTRGV to me was a very project portfolio-driven, exciting place, and it still is. I mean, we've done a lot of things, and there's still more to do. So every day to me is I'm excited, more excited than the first day of me being here. So, but I don't know. Again, it just depends on personal expectations out of a job. To me, it doesn't feel like a job, and it's a curse and it's a good and bad at the same time. At 4:30, my brain wakes up and tells me to wake up, and I'm like, oh, come on, you're kidding. I need to sleep a little bit more, but it becomes exciting. My story.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. And very much thanks to our three panelists. I think we got a lot of different views on a lot of questions and great discussion. So.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. And thanks to my co-organizer, Maria, who's just sat here quietly taking notes.
So we have a 20-minute break. 20,
I'm glad you said that. She's religiously taking notes, and I'm like, I don't know.
With NSF. Okay?